guidelines, and and a lot of people, they took everyone's weight and that kind of thing. We have 2 different urban farms, so these are empty lots where we work with developers to take over the farms, and then again, it's just creating jobs for people. Some of that food gets thrown into the lunch peddler program. We work with an organization called Hives for Humanity to do beekeeping. So all of our hotels in the downtown east side have beehives on the roof, and a lot of residents, again, that's been really beneficial. A few people, it's just been life-changing for them. It's very therapeutic and meditative, and you have to be sort of calm and focused and that kind of thing. And at the end of the year, they make a whole bunch of honey, and that's sold in local shops, that kind of thing. Wait, my slides got mixed up now. So in 2010, we expanded to include an Aboriginal service program in response to the disproportionate health disparities experienced by this group. So this service aims to address the needs associated with cultural and spiritual care by reconnecting or helping people to connect for the first time to traditional spiritual cultural practices. This program provides service to approximately 120 people a week through talking circles, which begin and end with singing, drumming, smudge ceremonies, a monthly sweat lodge ceremony. We do drum making, and on-reserve gatherings and events. We also, in 2011, held the first ever powwow in the downtown east side, which was really strong for bringing together some of the First Nations communities who, ideologically really were opposed to some of the harm reduction stuff, but we really worked over the years with our Aboriginal coordinator to sort of bridge that gap, and a lot of progress has been made, and the downtown east side was just a very powerful thing to be a part of. We also, earlier on, opened a dental clinic, so that was something we could see. So many people had no teeth, they had no access to dental care, so we just basically worked with the health authority to open a dental clinic. Pigeon Park Savings, so that's a bank in the community. There are no banks directly in the downtown east side, and a lot of the people that were trying to access banks were just turned away at the door by security or unable to get the ID together, that kind of thing. A lot of people would have their assistance check, which is a small amount, but they would always be carrying cash. People would be getting robbed. Just so many different problems. We worked with a local credit union to open basically our own bank. So all of the staff that work there have worked within our housing for many years and are very, they know a lot of people in the community, and they're sort of trained in all the, basically the philosophy of how we approach people. So, so that bank has worked really well. It's about the size of this room with a higher ceiling, and we opened it, and it's very open. We had to go back and forth with the bank. They really wanted walls of glass and little windows, and we said, no, it'll be okay. We've never had any problems with security or anything. On check issue day, like welfare day, it is very, very busy. It's the busiest branch in the province. You see about 100 people go through, or 1,000 people, go through throughout the day. But yeah, and then again, there's a lot of learning that goes on in there. They're experimenting with different modes of giving out the assistance checks, because once a month is difficult for people. So I'm just running through some of the housing, because there's quite a range now. And this is actually not up to date, so just some of the other things, there's some dates on there. So we do have basically what we call a no barrier shelter that was opened in 2001. That's a 50-bed shelter. There were a few things that had come up in terms of some people being excluded from the existing shelters. And then earlier that year, there had actually been a fire where a homeless woman was sleeping, or using her sort of shopping cart for shelter, and a fire lit, and she was killed in the fire. And it was a real issue, because when you're homeless, you're just pushing everything around in a buggy, and it might look like garbage to some of us, but that's all people have. And so we basically created a space where people can almost valet their carts. They can bring their carts every day, and there's some storage provided. Also, there were issues like at some of the shelters, couples weren't allowed to sleep together, or they were segregated, so we don't have that. People can have pets. So that is our shelter. The Portland Hotel, which was the original one, actually a new one was built, custom built. And then we have something called the Smith-Ewan Apartments. That's a partnership with another organization with Strathcona Mental Health. That's for mentally ill seniors. Not a lot of drug use at that building. ELS is another building focused on mental health. The Rainier is the women's only treatment building with 52 units, 1 floor transitional housing and 1 floor is more intensive treatment. Woodward's was a very historical landmark. It used to be a big shopping mall, and basically the whole block was closed. There was a big squat that happened in 2002 or so, and eventually it was redeveloped, and we run 125 units of social housing in there. Station Street is just another newer purpose-built building that was built, sort of the province, the provincial government provides the funding for the building and the city provides the land. And then the sort of housing and health together provide the subsidy to run that project. The Pennsylvania, that was the original Portland. It was eventually redeveloped. That has 43 units. Alexander Street Community is a more recent one. It's our largest in Vancouver at 139 units, and that is 100 units of housing and 39 units of transitional housing that's sort of heavily supported. Yeah, and then we have just basically a bunch of other buildings. So you can see how we've taken sort of more and more projects on. Unity Housing is actually a program that's been around for a long time. That's 26 rooms and 6 rented apartments, and that is, they were their own society, but they were having trouble with the finances, so we run the accounting and provide some support, but generally it's mental health users who they decide who's going to live in the building, and they're very sort of self-directed. And then single room occupancy hotels. So those are our hotels that in the past used to be actually function as hotels or for laborers who would just be there seasonally. So these are kind of crappier buildings, but they're really trying to hold on to space. We're dealing with a very severe housing crisis in Vancouver. So the province bought many of these hotels. We have 5 of them. At this point, they've all been fully renovated, which is great. So we had to move people out into temporary housing for a year, which provided a lot of challenges, but everyone's back now, and so that's great. And then the other thing was, over the past year, as I mentioned, we expanded to Victoria. So that was, we're still learning, and it's been very interesting to sort of, because Victoria's not that far from Vancouver, it's on Vancouver Island, but really, in a lot of things, it felt like going back in time, I think. It was the same things we were seeing earlier on. A lot of the same people were excluded. And then basically a tent city formed on the courthouse lawn. Victoria it's much more conservative, I guess. And they have a lot of anti-homeless, anti-camping laws. No one can set up a structure. You can't sit anywhere, basically. So people were sort of scattered on the outskirts in parks, but their homeless numbers are actually per capita 4 times greater than Vancouver. It's one of the worst cities in Canada in terms of homelessness. And then they basically established a tent city on the courthouse lawn because somebody realized that was provincial property and they couldn't it was actually a park on the courthouse lawn. You're allowed to camp in provincial parks. That quickly, over months, developed into a massive tent city. And they actually won for the first time in Canadian history an injunction where the province took them to court to try and have them removed, and the judge ruled the province had failed by not providing housing, and that the people they were supporting had excluded these people. So about 60% were barred from all the other service providers, and that was when the province asked us to come in, work with the tent city, and eventually buy a building, which for us was powerful because for so many years it was very controversial what we were doing, and now 20 years later the government is saying, we have this problem, you guys know how to fix it, please do what you do. So that was really great, and they ended up purchasing a building, and in 10 days we moved the entire tent city into that building. And we've since opened what's called an overdose response unit in that building. Because, like I mentioned with Insight, the government did a lot to ensure that there would not be any further supervised injection sites anywhere in the country. So And we are experiencing a massive fentanyl crisis. I'm not sure how much it gets talked about down here. I was out with some people, definitely not as bad here. It's really unprecedented. We thought the 90s were really bad, but what we're seeing right now is just, it's the highest level of overdose deaths ever. So in just the province of BC, last year there were 922 deaths. And if we hadn't done all the work we've done, it would be so much worse. And within our housing, we run about 1,300 units of housing. In the month of December, our staff intervened in 252 overdoses, so they reversed 252 within our housing. The numbers are quite staggering. At this point, we're quite concerned for our staff because it's so unprecedented. We have one staff in particular who's intervened in over 60 overdoses, but many staff, it's kind of expected when you're going to work that likely someone's going to overdose or worse, you're going to find someone who's passed away. So it's been a massive challenge, and part of that was the provincial health minister in our province. They were working with the new federal government to try and repeal the bill and make it easier to open these services, but eventually he issued a ministerial order, more or less telling the federal government we're doing this anyway because too many people are dying. That happened in November. And then very quickly they called on us, so we opened 4 what they're calling overdose prevention sites, not supervised consumption sites. So they don't provide the full range of service. The idea is it's more of a lifeguard and you're bringing service to where you know people are using drugs. And there were some activists who we worked close with, one that's an employee of ours, and they actually set up tents in about October. They just set up tents in the alleys and they were seeing 100 people a day and intervening in overdoses. And at first, the city and health authority were sort of opposed, but nobody did anything about it. The police would stop by and say, thank you, the alley got cleaner. And so eventually the push from them and others led the minister to just say enough, and we're going to fund and open these things. So we opened one in our building in Victoria, and there's about 4 of them now in Vancouver. So it's making a difference. The biggest problem still, all the deaths are happening in housing that is often more restrictive, where drug use may affect their tenancy, so people are using alone in their rooms, or the staff aren't trained in using the lock zone, so there's lots of training going on now. They also reversed the sort of laws around the lock zone, so the lock zone is it reverses opioids, but basically I could stick it in, inject myself right now, and the effects are less than aspirin. It does have just, basically no bad side effects, yet it was a classified drug, which is just sort of part of the war on drugs framework. It's because it reverses an opioid, so for some reason it's a controlled substance. So they've now done a lot of work to repeal that, so anybody can get it, you don't need a prescription. And there's massive programs trying to distribute it widely. And let me see. And then in terms of, I have a few slides on different sort of costing models. So this is based on something that was called the at-home study. This was the largest study ever done on homelessness across Canada. Each city looked at a different sort of subset of the homeless population. There was one focused on recent refugees and immigrants. There was one focused on First Nations in Edmonton. There was one focused on families, and in Vancouver it was mental health and addiction. And this sort of looked at our model of what some people call wraparound service, or really trying to embed all the services into housing. So basically the only thing that went up in cost was psychiatric rehab residential programs, so a lot more people were getting connected. Basically everything else fell down. Emergency use, hospital generally went way down. And so these are just some other facts. For every $10 invested, it resulted in an average savings of $855. $9,700 per year in decreased hospitalization. This is average for each individual, and there were 120 people in this study. So $4,000 decreased shelter use, etc. So this was one of the first large national studies on the relation between addiction treatment, sort of in the way that we do it, and noticed that the number of offenses fell by 23.5%. This is a 3-year study as well. So there's a massive drop in the criminal justice involvement once people were housed and given these supports. So definitely the link between stable housing, which is kind of obviously, and mortality is quite strong. You know, it's clear that people use more when they're not housed. Housing definitely, you know, you have people that are homeless die, you know, much earlier. It's 8 to 10 years, I think, on average. So these are just some of the general goals for the individual and the community that were related to the Bosman Hotel study. And one of the more interesting studies that came out about 4 years ago by the Health Authority noted that in the downtown east side since the 90s, when we started doing this work, the average life expectancy in the neighborhood had risen by 9.8 years, which is quite remarkable. So, you know, so many people were dying of overdoses and then converted to HIV that after about 20 years from where we started and others working in the community, life expectancy went up by 10 years. So that was very remarkable. I think they knew that it improved, but no one thought by that large of a margin. Yeah, and then, you know, in spite of cynicism, there have now been over 40 peer-reviewed studies on insight. You know, we know it's engaging the population it was meant to. People that weren't going to clinics and were homeless, and that people are starting to find an entry point into healthcare and housing, which is really, really important. And I think an important thing to understand is that for the drug users in Vancouver, the insight model is much more than a place to inject or a health facility. It is symbolic of care, of social membership and social inclusion. And I think symbolically, those things are much more meaningful than we understand when we talk about just the statistics or the epidemiology. You know, those things are relevant from a public health perspective, but in terms of the larger message, it's quite powerful for people. And the same applies to the other things we do, whether it's the bank or the shelter, the dental clinic, Insight. We basically at this point have a network that creates a web across the community into which we're able to catch most people. To improve their lives, open doors, provide places where they can exist without being hassled by security guards or denigrated or hurt further than they have been already. And the community has changed massively as a result of this approach, like I mentioned with the 10 years, you know, people living so much longer, and people really feel their voices matter. Powerless people feel more politically engaged, and they feel they have rights in their homes, their communities, and a whole new raft of services and programs now seem like norms, such as food in the hotels, healthcare, access to detox, treatment, culturally appropriate programming. Unlike when we began 25 years ago, it was a battle just to get into someone's room and have a chat with them because there was so much mistrust. And people now, I think really in the downtown east side, understand we're on their team helping them, and a climate of trust exists in a community that would otherwise be very overrun with drug-related violence that we see in so many other neighborhoods. I think I'll stop there. I could just take any questions people have. It's always hard to tell